Hey, this is Eric in Jersey City. I wanted to know, since Temple of Doom is a prequel, do we know if it's after Indy moved to California to join the Marshall College faculty? Just wondering.
Indiana Jones, Indiana Jones, Indiana. It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute, the podcast in which we get to the heart of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom 1 minute at a time. I am Tom Taylor.
I'm Pete Mummert.
I'm Gerald Christopher Marcus Porter.
And we are all here today to talk about minute 3 of Temple of Doom, which begins with shiny dancers still dancing, and it ends with those dancers running up the stairs of a nightclub in Shanghai, 1935.
And minute 3 starts, like the first credit that comes on the screen is director of photography Douglas Slocum. And he's got a cool history. He was the director of photography on Raiders. He was famous for never using a light meter, which is kind of crazy. But he has an interesting backstory. He began his career as a photojournalist for Life magazine and Paris Match back before World War II. And then he was a newsreel cameraman during World War II. And there's this great quote where he was talking about he was in Danzig in 1939, just before the Germans invaded Poland. And he was using this giant, heavy movie camera that could be kind of noisy. And he says, once I was in an auditorium filming a speech made by Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels, when suddenly the camera decided to emit a huge snarling sound. And he says, Goebbels froze and hundreds of uniformed brown shirts turned and glared at me in anger. It was not a comfortable moment.
Well, that sounds kind of like the ending of that last movie we did.
Right? They've given people some ideas.
It's an inspiration. That's funny.
So he lived it, before he filmed it.
Wow. Well, that's fun. Yeah, because like in this minute, the first 3 credits you get, it's all like some of the best guys from Raiders. It's like Douglas Slocum, and then you got the editor Michael Kahn,
who's been on every Spielberg film you've ever heard of.
Like literally, right?
Yeah, literally, and he's even working on Ready Player One.
That's crazy. Yeah, but you got Michael Kahn, and then you got John Williams, of course. So you're watching this, and you're like, oh, it's like the Raiders guys. The Raiders guys made another movie. This is gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
Hooray. As soon as this dance scene is over, I don't know. I can't decide if I like the dance scene or not.
Oh, I love the dance scene.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, did you guys catch like the massive foreshadowing in minute 3? Well, when the one line of chorus girls reaches out to the other line of chorus girls and rips these streaming arterial red handkerchiefs out of their chests.
That's hysterical. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well,
you guys, you picking up what I'm laying down here?
That's funny.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. But one could also say that this begins with a literal red flag. So I don't know what you want to make.
Willie Scott comes running at you carrying a red flag.
Or just an indication of maybe how violent and bloody this whole prequel will be, you know.
Yeah. It can be read any number of ways.
And all of those, what's crazy is all of the handkerchiefs are separate. But then when Willie grabs them and forms them that like a big bursting arterial red canopy cloth thing, it's like one big handkerchief.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did. And I've been wondering, like, it seems like they're breaking a lot of rules in this sequence.
It's kind of the same grammar that he would use, is like these magical things would happen on these giant, magical backstage stuff that only the viewer could see. And then they would sort of have a magical transition back onto the actual stage that the audience was watching.
Yeah, but would there be like that lack of continuity between like the individual handkerchiefs and then like, spread through between the like
they would have like the transitions would be like often impossible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we're not supposed to be sitting there thinking like, if you're Lao Che and you're in the audience watching this show, like the singer disappears into a dragon's mouth, like kind of backstage, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm gonna dragon. I'll be on the set. Oh, you wouldn't believe what's going on in here. There's all these dancers. Oh, there's like scarves and stuff. It's amazing.
You just hear this like this muffled. Well, then she like reemerges 2 minutes later with this small red scarf, looks you in the eye, and says, "Anything goes."
Yeah.
And you're like, "That's the show."
Right.
Like if you're Lao Che, you're like, "That's the show." Yeah, I mean, you know what goes? I want my money back.
Yeah, that's like a minute and a half.
Here's the thing. It's very dreamlike. And how does the sort of the magical part of the show end? She's blasted out of a dragon's mouth in what appears to be like a big puff of carbonite steam. So I'm saying this is definitely still the dream. And she comes pouring out with the carbonite steam. And it's kind of like, is this is gonna end up like that last episode of Newhart where Bob Newhart wakes up with Emily, and this is kind of like Han Solo's gonna wake up if he ever gets out of the carbonite, and he's gonna be like, Leia, you think you could wear more sequin dresses?
Well, I'll tell you this: the guy on Lao Che's right.
Oh wait, can we say one more? Can I get back
Oh,
inside
yeah.
the dragon's mouth for just 1 second?
Oh yeah.
I've got
Please
the
do.
I
questions
gotta
here,
ask
too.
about the. I don't know how Pete suddenly has become the Bugsby Berkeley expert, but they do the thing where they all the chorus girls go down on they do the splits and they kick back up and it's obviously reversed. It's like a reverse thing. Is that something that would have happened in those movies?
I can't remember. I was going to look at some of those and I didn't to see if they would use reverse film footage, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did because they
kind of don't like it.
a lot of.
It seems kind of.
Well, I was wondering if that was
know.
sort of because they kind of go backwards right when it says story by George Lucas, and I was wondering if that's kind of a statement on his career.
That's pretty clear.
Oh my God! I'll tell you. You know what? I'll tell you this. What I love about that, corny or not, you're right about George Lucas, but when they do that, there's this marimba. There's like this little. They go all the way down, and there's like this marimba thing in the music that goes like. Blip, 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 and it creates this perfect like dominoes falling sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's actually it's actually really genius. It's kind of that Fred Flintstone-y, where they like when they're gonna run somewhere.
That's Bugs Bunny running up the stairs.
Yeah, and that's what John Williams gives himself as his signature line.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That comes in when you see his name come on, and then we get screenplay by Willard Hoyk and Gloria Katz, who we mentioned a little bit before. And I think we also mentioned a little bit that George Lucas's original idea was that this was going to be a haunted castle in Scotland movie. And Spielberg had just made Poltergeist and didn't want to do that again. So they brought in this couple, Katz and Hoyk, specifically because they had a lot of knowledge about India.
Oh yeah, didn't they like travel there or something?
Yeah, they
like,
traveled there. And I'm
postcards
curious. Yeah. So which is interesting because a lot of controversy about this movie is that people say it seems to display kind of a lack of awareness about India.
You don't say.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that was why they were chosen. But the first thing they said about doing was recycling a lot of scenes that were cut out of Raiders. And they kind of started with these set pieces and they sort of built the story around them. And this beginning scene is one of those set pieces that we talked about during Raiders of the Lost Ark when Indy goes to Shanghai. And in that, he's trying to find a piece of the headpiece of the Staff of Ra. But it ends up being the same scene that we have here.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say we finally get a date and location.
Yeah.
And it's at this point that it hits you that this is actually a prequel. I mean, how do we feel about
we
that?
don't use the word prequel here. Or at least
No, well, this is
Spielberg
actually-
and Lucas don't. They keep saying, well, no, it's yes, it takes place before, but it's just, don't worry about continuity. It's just a thing. Which I actually kind of like. It's like a James Bond thing. It's like, suddenly James Bond is 10 years younger and he's got a different face, but he remembers all the things that happened in the 60s, even though it's 1980. It's like, it's fine. It's like, okay, it's just another story.
Well, I was going to say, Tommy, you're an editor. What's the correct thing to do with the Shanghai, 1935?
That works fine.
But I mean, do you need a comma there? I mean, you would if it was like Shanghai, China.
I think it's like I don't think there's like a hard and fast. I mean, I could get my Chicago Manual of Style out and look it up, but I don't want to.
I'll wait.
And but I know I'm not going to because I don't even think it's in there. I think it's like one of those things that it's like, it's got its own rules and you can just make them up.
Okay.
That's my professional opinion.
Did you guys know this was? I'm going to use prequel because actually, Lawrence Kasdan called it a prequel, so I think I'm going to keep calling it a prequel. But did you guys know that, like, when you were a kid, did this kind of hit you that this takes place before Raiders? Like, I never knew this until I was an adult.
I knew before. I think before I saw the movie because it was in all the. I was just like an hour ago reading an old Fantastic magazine. Not a really good magazine. I mean, Fantastic magazine from like the 80s. And it was like an interview actually with Frank Marshall. And he was like, and it was addressing the fact, oh, yeah, this takes place before. So they were mentioning it and all those things. Like, yeah, it takes place a couple of years before, and they even keep saying like, yeah, it's just a further adventure of Indiana Jones and stuff. So, yeah, I think that was, at least for nerds like me who are following it and waiting for the movie to come out and stuff and gobbling up everything they could find about it, then, we knew about it already.
Because, yeah, I never made the connection having seen both movies. Like by the time I saw Temple of Doom, I'd forgotten that Raiders was in 1936. So when I saw this, I just like, oh, numbers on the screen.
Yeah.
So it never occurred to me.
I was just going. Dun, 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 dun,
just bouncing up and down in his seat. That was neat.
I actually thought it was really cool that it was earlier, and I was like, they can do that in movies.
They can.
Yeah.
Well, I love when after she comes out with the red, kind of that red banner and says anything goes, and the camera cuts to Lao Che and his men posed behind a table. And I just love this scene so much. Like, it looks like something the Dutch masters would have painted. Like, it's beautiful. Like, you see them all kind of posed around the table, and those two guys behind them that kind of look like the Blues Brothers.
The huge Blues Brothers.
Yeah, they do. Wow, you're right. It is like the Dutch masters.
I have a note here. That's before the show was over. I have a note here. Remember when they were walking in Peru? Remember when they were in the jungle with a bunch of sweaty, grubby guys? That's how the last movie started.
Well, I'll say this. You asked. You're not sure if this show tune musical number is working for you if you buy it, Tom. Right?
It's weird because I like it as a thing and I like it as a fun thing. Like, hey, these new Hollywood wonderkins, Lucas and Spielberg, they're doing a fun throwback to the thing. But then like the thing that keeps tripping me up is like, oh wait, this is the start of the new Indiana Jones movie that I've been waiting for. Like, this is the sequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark, and this it's a different thing now, and maybe it's cool. I don't know yet, but yeah, it throws me a little bit as an Indiana Jones opening. Maybe that's it.
Well, it does.
Yeah.
It does. And for some reason, I love the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah,
I do too.
I love the beginning of this, and
fine.
I agree that it's definitely like it's 4th and 25, and there's only 5 seconds left. And, yeah, it's a long ball move here. You're like, this is not at all how I'd imagine the next Indiana Jones movie to start.
Right.
Which kind of makes it, it's pretty gutsy.
Yeah, in a way, it's very cool. In a way, it's like, hey, here we are. We're doing this now. We're making a movie that takes place in 1935, and we're going to do a Cole Porter musical number. Because that's what you do.
And Willie is fantastic in this.
Yeah, she's
just selling it. Yeah,
I'm a fan so far.
Yeah, I'm a fan so far too. And we already got 3 minutes of this movie done. And yeah. And what could go wrong?
Yeah, we're gonna be okay.
My last note here is that this guy sitting next to Lao Che, the kind of skinny, balding guy, is perhaps the most Spielbergian looking character in any Spielberg movie.
You know what's funny about him? Maybe I should save this for later, but there's something about characters in movies who later on something gross happens to them. Like there's like some like 80s special effect that happens to them, like some makeup effect or something. Like this guy dies like in a weird way later on. And like just seeing his face now, I'm like, oh, he's the guy. Like I see him getting killed in a weird way. Like it's like you see Tote melting the second you see Tote.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Like as a kid, I have that connected in my head.
Yeah, and it's like Dietrich starts to look like he's kind of weird, like his face looks kind of weird before he even starts to implode. Like,
Yeah.
I just noticed the guy has a really flaccid clap.
Yeah. Well, the one guy's got a bandaged hand and he's still clapping. I don't know. He's like,
Yeah, well, this guy, that's
what
what I was going to. Yeah, I think this guy's upset about the show.
yeah, he couldn't hear it.
Yeah, that's my point. I think he's like,
Maybe if I was
the
in
hell
a
is
dragon,
this?
it would have been good.
Exactly. I mean, I guess for him, he's like, this is kind of like, this is like the work meeting he has to go to.
Right.
Like, I got this thing after work. The boss invited me to go to this thing, this Anything Goes musical.
Well, are these both his sons? I forget if he refers to both of them as his sons.
Well, that's another minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, fine. Hey, listen. Well, all right. It sounds like we're itching to get on to the next one. So why don't we wrap up minute 4? But before we do that, Pete, I'm sure you have some nice things to say to the people.
It was minute 3.
Oh, was it? See, I've already advanced
yeah.
my notes for the next one. Minute 3. I'm sure we're
Well, you're very excited. You're very excited.
I'm sure we're excited to get to minute 4. So let's wrap up minute 3. But first, Pete, say some nice things to the people.
We love all of you, and we want to thank you for listening to us.
You're all very handsome.
And you're all very handsome and beautiful.
Lovely.
And if you want to hang out with us more, because we love you so much, you can find us on Facebook. We even have a special group on Facebook called Indiana Jones Minute and the Listener's Crusade. And just click join and you'll be invited right in. Or you can find us on our website at indianajonesminute.com.
And you can find us here at the same indie time, same indie channel for minute 4 of Temple of Doom here on the Indiana Jones Minute. Anything goes?